before I came to school, I actually was first exposed to the entertainment industry as a whole in 2015 when I actually did an internship with talent management, two talent managements, where I was an intern to both the founders of their respective groups. And as an intern, I've met actors, so I was actually on the flip side.
Right.
So
You were judging them.
No, of course not. I was actually sending out the auditions and just like a assistant to the founder. So now on the aspiring actress side, how important is it to have a manager or an agent? Because nowadays people are self-submitting themselves to projects.
Yeah.
So is it like a necessary step that we have to take? Or like, should we go actively seek an agency or representation?
This is a tougher question, right? Because there's so many paths in.
So many,
right?
yeah.
Like you can say, well, I don't have an agent. They're like, yeah, but you're an international model. What do you need an agent for? Like you got hired because somebody already knows you.
Yeah.
There are lots of different ways in. That said, it's really, really helpful to have good representation. Not just to have representation, but to have good representation.
Okay.
You need a team, right?
Exactly,
Because
yeah.
yes, you can self-submit, but not every place takes unsolicited submissions. Some people will only take submissions from in fact a lot of the top people will only be taking from agents and managers who they know. Right, because otherwise they'd have to have a staff that can go through 20,000 submissions for every part.
Yeah.
Right. So they reduce that a bit by saying, let me go through some trusted vetting. Right. And it shows like by getting representation, you've legitimized yourself to the point of like that they should be taking you seriously. So I think a lot of casting people, they really do. They like to see that you're represented. They want to go through representation because it makes their job easier.
Right.
Instead of having open calls for everything. I think it's really important. Plus, you're just never going to hear about every role. So you should be doing most of the work. Typical stuff. If your agent has charges different rates, don't blame me. But most agents take 10%.
Yes.
Standard thing. Managers, I think 20%. Right, pretty common. Attorneys 5%. Sometimes publicists now get into the act and take a little percentage. But 10%. That means you should be doing 90% of the work. Right? At least. They're only taking 10%. And I think, so while it is important to get representation, it doesn't get you off the hook for anything.
Right, exactly, because you still have to do the work.
You still have to do it, including...
They just help you.
They help you.
They guide you.
They do.
Get you into the right rooms.
Listen, it's hard to be alone in this town.
Oh, yeah.
Right? In this industry, to be like, we have a school to support you artistically. Right? You can come in and talk to us about the business, about the industry stuff that's going on, auditions you have or didn't get. But to have someone who's literally on your team in the industry really helps. Someone you can complain to. By the way, someone you can look for roles. You should still be looking for roles even if you have management, even if you have representation. You say, a friend of mine's going out for this. I think it'd be good for me. Right? If you think there's a role that you should be going out for and you're not being sent out, send it to your agent and say, hey, I'd like to go up for this. And maybe they don't know that casting director. Maybe they didn't get it. Maybe they thought you were wrong for it. You can have a conversation. Maybe they can just send you in.
Oh.
Right? Like, it really, really, really helps.
Yeah. And
the reason I say it was a tough question is because just because it really, really, really helps doesn't mean it's impossible to do without one. Right? Yeah. But if you look at it, pretty much every successful actor has gone through representation. Yeah, they go through representation. And they don't just do it once they become big. Like they've used representation, they've used that ladder, they've climbed that ladder a bit to forward their career, right? So that's the most established way to do it. Again, it's not impossible to do it some other way. If you put out a YouTube video and it becomes wildly popular, your YouTube channel, you might get signed to something without an agent. Like things can happen in ways that used to be more difficult, right? But it's not the way I'd recommend. You're like, well, how should I want to get into acting. What should I do? I wouldn't say start a YouTube channel. I still think that is a lower probability way to build it. Right?
Yeah.
So unless that's a gift of yours, unless you're really talented in that area, you're like, well, I've already done it. It's going strong. I go, okay, well, let's leverage it.
Okay. So then agencies and managers, both of them, or do we just
So
get away with one?
every actor is different on that, and there are teams. Some people literally have agent, manager, publicist, attorney. They have,
the whole 9 yards.
They have the whole team.
Okay.
Right, and they put the whole team together to talk about parts, talk about things, work stuff out. Right. Some people are like, well, I don't need a manager because I have an agent. If your agent is helping guide you, a manager typically has a wider focus. Mm-hmm. They're looking a little more broadly and a little more long term. Typically. Okay. They're also willing to take you where they're good for newer actors. They're often willing to take you when you're still more developmental. Whereas an agent is like, even places that take a lot of people, like they take kind of like a cattle call full of clients, it's sort of just to weed you out, right?
I see.
They're like, well, I'll sign her, and if she books anything, I'll keep her. If she doesn't book, I'll move on from her and get someone else, right? Mm-hmm. Their thing is about, are you booking jobs today? Mm-hmm. Right? Like it's again, I don't want to speak for every single agent, but that is more the direction that they're looking at. They take a smaller percentage. They can't, but they're also just less, archetypally, they're less involved in everything in your career.
I see.
Whereas a manager takes more, to 20%. They're going to look more broadly at like, what kind of roles, I should get you into a class, let's think about that, right? Like they're going to take a broader look at your career. So get what you can get, meaning get someone who believes in you and will fight for you and has the power to do something about it.
I like that.
And if that happens to be a manager, fine. Usually the manager will lead you to an agent. One thing is managers are prohibited, technically speaking, from negotiating contracts. There's a difference between them, right? Oh. So technically a manager cannot negotiate your contract. Okay. So for example, a guy who we work with, who teaches here and advises a lot of our students, Phil Brock, is a manager. He's licensed as an agent, right? He actually has an agent license. He doesn't practice it as an agent per se. He doesn't take the 20 and the agent percent, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But he has that accreditation, so to speak, that certification. So if he needs to do some negotiation, I believe he can. I think there's a way that it formally works that he can do that, right? Okay. But you should know it is different.
Yeah.
Right? It is
different. It's different. So then, should you go actively search for representation, or should they find you instead?
No, you got to search.
Oh, so we have to apply. Okay.
You got to do the work. And I will say it's like the time-honored tradition of finding an agent or a manager. It's like, how do you do that? Right? Oh. Research.
All right.
Research. Right? Because there are some people, depending on your demographic, right? Mm-hmm. So if you were, Miss Kentucky, if you're like a beauty pageant queen, you're like a runway model and all that kind of stuff, you might be able to get away with just doing like blind, and I don't mean that's the only call, but like some like credential on you, right? If you have something that that's really, if you're like a big bodybuilder, right, with a very particular look, you might be able to just blind submit to places and say, here's my headshot, I'm looking for representation, and somebody will probably pick you up. Okay. I hate to say it helps to be good looking. Right? Okay. It does. It helps to have like a very marketable, clear thing, and good looks are one of those clear, marketable attributes. Right? That's why I say guys who are like really built, that's another way to do it. Mm-hmm. If you look like really kind of crusty and have actually, by the way, like we had a woman here who she's passed away since, but Ginny, and she was, I'm gonna make up, I'm gonna say she was 80. I don't know if she actually was 80. She might have been 86. She might have been 72. She looked like she was like 120. A lot of years of smoking. She had this wrinkled face. She was a lovely woman, absolutely lovely. She worked more than anyone in the building. Mm. Like in fact, all these like amazingly fit, conscious 20-year-old actors hated her because they were like, she was like, I'd love to rehearse, but I'm shooting tomorrow, and they're like, shooting again, right? Because like there just weren't that many faces like that. Yeah. She, that wrinkled face that was like the perfect grandma face. It's like you just don't see that too often. Right. For her, it was like a bucket list thing. She was like, I want to be an actor, and so she studied, like she worked at it, but she was getting hired all the time for little stuff, right?
Because her look was unique. Her
look is unique. It's easy to get representation. It's easy to get a commercial. It's easy to get some simple things going when you have something really unique like that in your background, right? On your resume. For most of the world, it takes more work. So I don't usually recommend just blind submitting. Blind submitting is okay, but I prefer a more targeted approach. Like if you want to send a bunch of things out and see if someone bites, fine. But it doesn't get you out of doing some hard work, which is I would actually do some research and not blind send to everyone. You could blind out to the people it's the shot in the dark, but to the rest, say like, why am I actually sending to this agency? Or why am I sending to this particular agent? Like, why do I want David to represent me? Why do I think he is the right fit for me? And if you have no idea, I wouldn't send it. I'd sit back until I have some reason. Like, you're like, oh, I have to be represented by CAA. Why? Why that agent at CAA? Like, do some homework. Figure out what's special about that person. Is that even a fit? Look at their client list. IMDb Pro is like a great resource, by the way. IMDb Pro. It's fairly cheap. I want to say it's $20 a month. So if you're really in a hunt, you can get it. And it has a 30-day trial, right? So I'm not trying to market for them, but it's something that is useful. We'll get sponsorship for the next. They'll have a little crawl on the for our next Q&A. But useful because now you can say, what actors do you really like? Or are there actors who you model yourself after? Well, who are they with? You can click on the actor, see who represents them, right? Or you can click on the agent, see who they represent. So if someone's interested in you, you can say, well, who else are they representing? Right? Like, what does their business look like? And I think doing some real research like that so that you can make targeted conversations. I'm not a big believer in networking, per se. I don't like networkers. People who network, I usually find them distasteful. Right? I don't like them doing it to me. I don't really like doing it with them. But I love people who are building relationships. Right? And if you can sense that sometimes that might look similar, but to me, there's a difference. Someone who's networking, they're really only talking to you like, what can you do for me? What can you do for me?
Genuine versus being phony.
Yeah.
Right?
Lynn, that's so great. I'm so happy to see you.
Yeah.
Listen, are you...
so...
Right? And they're like, literally, you other people, they're like, David, oh my God, I can't believe you're here. I'm like, yeah, you obviously can't believe it because you're not even looking at me, right? So I must not believe you. So are you building a relationship? If you're building a relationship, by the way, that creates good networks. But I think you want to look at your agent or your manager, all your representation as a relationship. It's an important relationship to build. So start in the beginning, like make a real decision about it, pick good people, and look up and find the best you can find. Don't just pick like it's like Tinder or something. You're not just going to go, any face, I'll take that one. You know what I mean? Like, look and be like, I don't know. Is that a left swipe or a right swipe? I'm not sure which is the good one.
Based on their caption and their...
Yeah, like, you gotta like kind of figure out like, well, I don't know. It's like, should I be moving forward here or not, right? Agents and managers are the same way.
All right.
You gotta figure out how to do that. And it's hard, right? Like, it's hard. You gotta like, everyone wants to get on board once you're successful. You're like, but how do I get successful without someone getting on board? Right? It's this catch-22. So you need a little bit of faith from them and a little bit of success from you, kind of at this right moment. And then you'll catch the wave. And
All right.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right.
Well, as a first semester, I have a lot to take in. Thank you so much, David.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Good luck.
No further questions, Your Honor. Thank you. No, that was a lot. I have so much to learn still. I'm so green to this. So green.
You know what? It'll all come in its